Hello, folks. This is Bob Dodrill, application engineer with Hilco Incorporated, and I'd like to spend a few minutes with you today discussing the software and discussing setup for the Banner Safety Laser Scanner, the SX5 series. A couple of things we need to do first before we actually get into the software. Let's make sure that our computer is set up to talk to our computer. Now, one thing I'd like for you to keep in mind is that the SX5 actually utilizes two IP addresses. It uses two consecutive IP addresses. One is for communication with the computer. The other one is for background communication back and forth for operational use. So we need to make sure that our computer's set up. So I'm going to go into my Windows 10 computer. I'm going to go to Network and Ethernet. I'm going to go to the Ethernet tab. I'm going to check my adapter options. The SX5 defaults to 192.168.0.10. In my case, mine is already set up. I've already have an IP address in it, but I want to just double check my computer. So I'm going to go to the Properties tab. I'm going to go to my Ethernet protocol version 4 and Properties again. And I want to make sure that my IP address is correct. And for my case, it is. So I know what my IP address of my computer is. I can move forward from here. Say OK and close all this. The next thing I want to do is I want to check my firewall options. I want to make sure that my computer is allowing my SX5 to talk to my software. So if I go into my firewall settings and down to allow an app through the firewall, now I want to scroll down to Banner GUI. That's Banner Graphical User Interface. I want to make sure basically that all the boxes are checked here. And if I wanted to change this, I could click this change settings. It'll highlight. I can check all my boxes and I can just simply say OK. And now I'm set up. So I know now that my computer can talk to my SX5. I want to just start out with a whole new safety system configuration. So I'm going to click on that. From here, I want to go up and find my scanner. I want to develop my communication. So I'm going to go to Scanner and Discovery. Discovery goes out, it finds it, it says, hey, you have one on the network. Here's the IP address, so we can use this. I double click on it, I bring it into my project. If, for instance, I needed to change the IP address, once it's here, I can go back to Scanner and Settings and change network configuration, and I can change the IP address. The IP address of my unit is obviously 1.12. As I stated before, it utilizes two IP addresses. So at this point, I would utilize 192.168.1.12 and 1.13. So I can say OK now, and it tells me right here, hey, you're utilizing these two addresses. So I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to go to my upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to hit my next arrow. And it's going to actually pull the file that's currently running in my controller back into my software. But if I wanted to create a whole new one here, I could just give it a new name and move forward. So again, I'm going to hit the next button. In this tab, it tells me I have some basic settings. It has some things. How many warning zones do you have? My warning zone is mapped to my green wire. If I wanted to change that, I could make it no function, and I could move my yellow wire to warning 1. It's just a choice of whichever wire that you want to use. The white wire is utilized for the reset tab. I do have my muting disabled here. I can have multiple warning zones. I could have 2, and then I could utilize 2 pins. And it's just really all in what you're trying to configure. If I needed a pre-warning zone, let's say, or if I needed it based on 2 areas, I could do that. Now I'm going to go to my next tab again, And I have the ability here to actually change it to more zones. Why would I want more zones? So if I want to move around an area, let's say I have a fence coming into the area that the scanner sees, I could have a zone on either side of it. I have the ability here to have multiple zones. So this is where I would change that. And now I can move forward again. I have my restart mode at automatic, recovery time. There's really not a lot to change here unless you wanted to change restart mode to manual. I'll move forward again. Now, in this area, this is kind of neat. I get to do some configuration of what the scanner sees or how it reacts. Really what this is for is kind of to filter out maybe a dusty environment or something, that may float through the area or some debris floating. So my detection capability here, I can either set it to a 40 millimeter area, which is puts the beams closer together, or a 70 millimeter area sets my beams further apart, obviously. I can also alter the number of scans that my scanner will take before it fires an output. So it would have to see something in the area faster than 2 scans. If I increase this though, let's just move it up really far, it also increases the response time or the safety output back to the system or to the safety controller. So again, it all depends on what you want to do, but it allows you some filtering. The dust filter obviously is what it says. It allows you to filter out dust, so to speak. And you can do the same thing with the safety as well as the warning zone. You can do both. Now we're going to move forward again. Now I'm into my configuration area. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to know what my scanner sees. So it's in place and I want to see the area. So I'm going to drop down here to this little tab that says teach in, and it's on the right hand side of the screen, kind of in the lower third. So I'm going to click that button and immediately it pulls in what the area is around my scanner. Now it's set up on my desk. There's obviously some stuff around it. Let's remember that this scanner can actually see a 270-degree area. So it sees a big area. Now, if I wanted to, I'm going to change this. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make my shapes and I'm going to just delete it altogether. So I want to do a freehand. So I want to go up here and I want to click the freehand tab. Now I can actually draw some shapes into my field to make sure that I'm covering everything that I want to cover with my scanner. And that is my safety zone. So now I can go back to my warning zone now. And I just created a simple arc, but I'm going to delete that really quick so I can show you again. Typically, you would want your warning zone to be larger than your safety zone, but we'll just do a quick arc with this. And I'm just going to draw an arc in this area for my warning zone. So now I want to kind of look at both of them. Well, my warning zone's really kind of too big for my area. So I want to go back to my safety zone and I want to edit that. It's probably easier just to delete it. Create another freehand. And I want to make my safety zone a little smaller than my warning zone. Now, obviously, that's a pretty basic system, but now the next step would be, how do I move forward? So I have all these options for drawing to draw my area. So I want to make the next step. So I'm going to move forward to next. All right, So here, now I want to load my new configuration. So I'm going to click load, and it's going to say, okay, this was successfully validated. Now you can load. So I'm going to say, okay. The password out of the box is admin in lowercase, ADMIN, and I'll click OK. It just tells me that it's going to turn the scanner off while it's loading a new chain. I'll click OK. And down here, it's going to tell me that it's working. And it takes a few minutes. It's off duty. It'll scan through and load the file, and it actually takes a minute or two for it to load. It has to do a lot of self-checking. It has to go back and forth, and let's make sure that everything's correct. So it does take a few minutes for it to do that. So I'll pause for a second, let it kind of run through the time that it takes to load a new file. We can watch the progression here. So it's loaded. Now I have another option. I can accept it. I can say, okay, I can accept it or reject it, but I can also just move forward and I can look at what I created here. So now I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to kind of move into the area, and you can see that now I'm into the warning zone and I'm into the safety zone. And again, that's just my hand moving through the area, and I can see it here on my screen. So this looks okay. It looks like what I want to do. So I'm going to hit the back button again. Now I can choose to accept it because I've had a moment to test it. I've had some self-checking going on. Now I'm ready to move forward with a program safety scanner. It's that fast. It's very simple software. Everything's now complete to run a safety system. I thank you very much for taking time to listen to this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Have a great day.